they're really short. So I think between the 6 chapters, there's less than these 4 chapters.
Uh, I don't have a lot on. Catholic food.
Forum. It's good.
Baby's huge. She was taking pictures of it. She had. That was, I like the picture you took. No. Now, the clones. Oh, I didn't think they looked that much alike until I actually. Oops.
Ready? Okay, we will call the Cheney Planning Commission June 8th, 2026 meeting to order. We will start with item number 2, citizen participation. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to address the planning commission? Second call, if anyone would like to address the planning commission? Third and final call, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of April 13th and May 11th meeting minutes.
I just had a little tiny, I think it's just an oops, but on page 3.
Which one?
Of the minutes.
April 11th or May 11th?
Oh, we have
April-
2 to approve?
April
Well,
13th.
I'm looking at May 11th. Yes, I'm not sure if I don't remember seeing the other one in my packet. Was the other one in the packet that went out, or is it? Yeah, I don't see it with my copies. Don't see it with mine. Well, my comment was on May 11th and page 3, I just noticed that the 4th paragraph down, it became a little informal, or it just says Shane stated instead of Commissioner Nellis, as if there was a new person that jumped into the scene, so. But I'm good with the rest of it.
We make that correction.
With that, I guess I would move to approve with that little minor amendment.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. And then that will take us to item number 4, public hearing number 2026-04. Are we gonna, I assume we'll have a staff presentation for it?
Good evening. First off, I wanted to let everybody know that Commissioner Early has tendered his resignation from the commission. I'm not aware of any circumstances, but that it will be missed, and we thank you for his service. Commission. So what we are going to do is the next, 5 items, the public hearings, we're going to continue those through. The ones that we've already talked about, those will continue on, but they have the updated numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, so, so as you can tell from your packet, we're starting to get into the weeds on the comp plan. And, we're going to make it as easy as possible and as fluid as possible on everybody. My cohort here has been doing a ton of deep diving in it, and I've been relying on him heavily. I'm going to turn it over to Travis here shortly. What we're essentially doing now that we've let Nexus go, we are going to propose not changing direction, because all your work that you've given, the red lines you've given, will be taken forward and implemented. And you can clarify when you get there. Okay, I should just let you take it over there on that. I'm gonna let him talk about that. I'm just gonna turn it over because you're just gonna repeat everything I have notes on. So I'm gonna refer to the man with the knowledge.
So, I guess I want to start off by saying, I did a lot of research into the previous comp plans. And what I found was the 2010 comprehensive plan is the comprehensive plan that we have for the 2017. It was just updated and made more in tune with the 7-year change. And I believe it was also the same for 2006, because one of the policies in there states that they want this to be a living document. A lot of the policies in the 2017 one state every year or every other year, there should be checkups in it and like make sure that everything's going right. And so I think that as you can see from the appendixes that I gave you, there's so much research that has been done over the past 15 years, specifically to Cheney. And we don't really want to just throw all that out. We want to keep all of that and build onto it and really create a living document. And so what we're proposing is, as Terry said, is to put Nexus's changes, everything that we want to keep, and update the 2017 comp plan. If you've noticed, the housing and land use look completely different than the capital facilities and transportation. It's because capital facilities and transportation is from the 2017 comp plan. It's just been updated. All of the data has been updated for 10 years. We're looking into a couple of things that we need to clarify, such as like network speed. We believe all the buildings have 1 gigabyte per second, but we want to double check all the numbers. But basically, by updating the previous comp plan, it's a lot less work for everyone else as well. It's a great idea to read through the comp plan because this has been approved and looked over 2 times, one in 2010 and one in 2017. And so everything in here is really in tune with Cheney. And if we focus on a lot of the red line changes, and if you read through it and see any red line changes you want to add, I think that would be the best way to update this plan. So far in these 2 that I presented for capital facilities and transportation, I've taken everything from Nexus and added it into here. A lot of what they did was just took stuff from these, took it out and updated it. So they're basically doing the same thing, but we're just keeping our old format. So it's not a whole new read, if that makes sense. And so today, really, we're just going to focus on the housing and land use, number 4, number 5. And we're introducing you to the capital facilities and transportation. And we're hoping by the 29th, you can send in some red line edits. It's up on the website too. Citizens can look at it, send in comments and any edits and changes that they want. And then these 2 will be presented next time for approval, hopefully. The land use and housing will have to go through all the red line edits that we've already done. And once those are approved or denied, we'll implement them into the old 2017 and update that. And then that will be brought to you for final approval. But everything, all the red lines will be approved already. So it'll just be a quick read through, if that makes sense. And that's kind of our plan going forward.
So are we taking, do you want us to take action on 4 and 5 tonight, or are we just continuing these?
We're continuing everything.
Everything, okay.
The only action to really take is to approve or deny any of the red line edits.
Okay.
But we're not approving the whole thing.
We're not taking final action.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the county had already done the climate element and because it was a new element, obviously we didn't have anything in our old comp plan. So that one is actually being moved to chapter 14 right before the end. And that's already approved by you guys. So there's not like, the only thing that's changing on that one will be the chapter number. And at the last meeting, when we bring you the whole packet, you can see that. But yeah, tonight we're just looking to get the housing and land use red line edits approved or denied. That's the
tweaked.
big thing. Yeah.
So the housing and the land use are really the heavy lift ones, from my impression. They're the big ones. So we get through that, it'll get better.
I think you kind of answered the question I was gonna have. So on the climate element, it should just be a change of chapter and basically reformatting so that it looks like the way the rest of the comprehensive plan looks, whereas
It'll all look the same, but
housing and land use, like, even though we're gonna look at all the changes, when you do your work, you're gonna have to produce something that's almost gonna be marked up as well, because it's getting folded into the existing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It'll be like these, like in 9 and 4, you'll see in some places where whole sections have been added and there's a comment added from Nexus's capital facility element.
Okay.
It would be just like that, added from the housing element approved on this date.
yeah, we just started looking back into the old ones and like, why reinvent all this? This is all very good stuff. And Travis was noticing the data that was developed for the last comp plan is still very relevant. It just doesn't make sense to throw it away. It wasn't being incorporated into the new one. And that you sense our frustration in that. It's been kind of a difficult process up to now. This should clean it up and make it more streamlined. I think so. And still end up with a very, very good product that's relevant to our city.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All right, So do you want to go page by page with the housing first?
That'd probably be the best way, yeah.
So do you want us? I guess we'll start with,
No.
oh, so we are doing, okay.
And then I think then continue it to the following meeting.
Yeah, well, I already said we're starting before. So. Then we'll just continue it after each one. But yes, I guess we'll start with public hearing 2026-04 comprehensive plan housing element draft second presentation. The public hearing is now open and we will start with discussion, and I guess we'll start on page 2 with the introduction, and we can start from there.
I don't know. How we're gonna go about this? Is staff gonna walk through these, or are we just gonna go each page, and if anyone has anything to say?
However you
Everything.
guys would think would be best.
I would imagine if it looks great, we don't need to linger on it.
All right. Are there
Okay.
any comments, questions on this first page? No.
No.
Good to me. Second page, I don't see any other than new requirements. I'm good. We'll get through the thick of it, and then at the end of each one we will take comment before we continue it. So let's do it that way. Yeah. All right. Page 3. Anyone have any questions about the one edit? 4. Good to me.
I only got a comment on page 5.
So we're still on page 4.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Page 5.
So, I'm seeing all the TBs. Those are your comments, Travis. Yeah. On TB7, it was, so you have this added language that during these 3 years, 69.9% of residential buildings were developed were single family residential. And you're proposing added it kind of to tell the full story. My comment is I guess I'm a little bit concerned about it might be telling the wrong story. Because if I read that, where my mind goes is because there's a difference between number of buildings and number of dwelling units,
Right.
right? And so you recognize that in your comment, you're saying, well, you know, obviously we've created more multifamily units than we have single family homes, but by on a building basis, 70% are single family homes, right? But with the fact that there's all this concern about affordable housing and providing for low income, one of the things that the analysis demonstrated was that, one, we don't really need to necessarily do anything, like we have enough capacity. But then from a history standpoint, to me, the fact that we have had so many multifamily units that have been built, and that percentage, which is the reality, right? We have a very renter heavy community. That leans into the fact that Cheney is providing for those lower income income levels. And if we put this language in here, to me, that's suggesting like, hey, the trend in Cheney is a lot of single family dwelling units. And while this is statistics, right? The numbers can be right, but the story it's telling to me, it reads as though that's the direction, and we're only going to be providing for higher income as opposed to lower income. And so I personally, I would not include that addition.
Move that sentence or
Yeah,
both
yeah.
sentences?
Did you guys all understand what I was
I
talking about
understand
there?
what you're talking about. That, or they need to clarify the number of dwelling units in all categories. You know, because telling me that 70% of the buildings are single family obviously doesn't tell us, you know, there could be 5 times as much single dwelling, multi-family dwellings created in the same period of time. Is, you know, the fact that the number of structures was built doesn't tell you the story. You're right. You either have to clarify the number of dwelling units created, or you drop the line.
Yeah, I do see towards the top, or the beginning of that paragraph, you have the 74% of all new housing units are multifamily. So I think the units is there, but to me, I think that was probably a fine thing to clarify there. I just would I'd accept that change at the beginning of the paragraph, but not accept the mid paragraph addition,
The one that starts during these years?
the 69.9%. Yeah, that's what I'm asking that we strike. If
Right, yeah.
yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Right, that sentence. Any other comments on this page or
No,
next paragraph? I don't.
Next page.
no,
6.
I'm good.
Next page. Page 6.
Got a handful notes on this. So, while you guys are reading it, but at the start, right at the beginning, I had that comment that I asked that if it was accounted for in potential future unit counts. Did you read that comment and have the answer on that?
I don't have the answer yet. There's gonna be some things in here that we don't have the answers to yet, and that's another reason we're pushing it forward too.
Okay. So just, can you guys see that SN10 comment that was on that right side, and it's showing that last sentence in the top paragraph?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got that question, and if it's basically I'm suggesting that it may need to be deleted depending on whether or not it was accounted for. So
Just make a note of it for
yeah,
next
so just
meeting.
as an explanation.
Do you
So
mean like accounted for in like the dwelling unit numbers that they
So-
had that whole?
yeah, because I mean, we've recognized that we are providing capacity, right? But if you read that sentence, it's saying that expanding the mixed use land use category is key to encouraging housing development. Like it's saying that that's a fundamental part of how we're going to address things. Well, to me, it's like, well, if we actually didn't, you know, because we were good, or I just don't know if that's actually key to it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I'll look into Nexus's research because I do remember them looking into that, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, I'll get that done.
under affordable housing, the first sentence, I didn't catch this before, but that last at the end where it says that there's a deficiency. And again, this is kind of one of those things where like, I think it's more that there's a challenge. Like the affordable housing is a challenge that's impacting everywhere. I don't know that deficiency is actually a correct term to describe that.
And the comment, is there
Like-
data to support it?
What?
The comment, was that your comment?
Yeah, TB11.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I didn't know. I didn't know where they got this information from at first, but it actually came from the previous comprehensive plan. And so we'll have to just look into seeing if the EW professors are still not living in Cheney, because there could have been a big change in the last 10 years. But yeah, that whole section was word for word brought from the 2017 comp plan.
Okay.
And I appreciate the fact that you had the comment on that whole paragraph because it made me look a lot closer at it too. So, um, I thought, so depending on, because, yeah, depending on whether or not that was true or not, I think we could avoid even saying whether or not that's true by just saying that, um, if it was a rewrite, so it says, and their families, is all, if we inserted also strike major concern, and then we say that, increasing the percentage of EW professional staff in the structures living is important as it is. Oh, sorry, is important as it impacts Cheney's economy. Of course, doesn't need to be there. That's not really professional language. And then, but it supports the city in other ways. So it, like, I think we all recognize that we want to maintain EW staff and students in the area, right? So I think that we can make that statement by rewriting it without putting language in there that says, hey, people are leaving, without, to your point, we don't have the data to back that, or maybe there was, but I doubt it. I mean, that might have been somebody in a survey that said something like that, but to me, that's a little subjective.
I would comment that if this is just a copy and paste, we could just rewrite it and to Shane's point, maybe encourage staff, professors, and students to reside within the city limits and leave it at that.
How would you view encouraging their staff to live here from a city comprehensive
Well,
plan
it's a goal.
standpoint? I guess I have a hard time, like, to encourage people to stay, suggest you're having conversations with them. And I don't know that, like, that's great, but I mean, just the way staff functions, it's not like, they're in just regular day-to-day interactions to go, oh, wait, you know, you work up the university. Hey, you should probably live here. You know, that's what, if we just said to encourage, I think that that's what that would suggest, as opposed
Okay.
to just, this is shaping the overall intentions, you know, and things that are important to the city. And that's where I think it makes sense that we recognize that, yes, it's important that we want to see an increased percentage of those individuals living here in town, and obviously, you know, spending their money here too, but without coming out and saying that people are leaving. Like, that's what you're pointing out. That's the issue with this paragraph. It basically says that the percentage is dropping without really data to back that.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just emphasize that, yes, it's important. We want to increase the percentage of people actually living here as opposed to commuting. That goes along with the climate element too.
It doesn't necessarily address the underlying reasons why they don't. You know, you look at the South Hill and you got very large, very nice neighborhoods, calm, sedate, moneyed, and Cheney doesn't have those. You know, we have some. You know, some of the newer stuff up in the Golden Hills area is nicer territories, but they're not nearly as large, well established as some of the South Hill venues, where I would imagine a lot of these folks must live. They're more expensive. That, you know, the whole South Hill is a very expensive place to live, so it's not a question of money. You know, they can afford to live there. So what is the underlying reason why they don't live here? Is it because they don't get the right neighbors, the right kinds of neighbors? Is it because there's not enough comparable housing to the communities that are available in Spokane? You know, what are the real underlying facts as to why they tend not to live here? You know, it's been that way since I was in school, so it's not like it's changed. It's always been this way. A large number of the professors and the professional staff live in Spokane and they commute. More available housing, better housing. There's not much you can do in this to address those issues.
Well, it's interesting because in recent years, that was one of the most prevalent conversations I think that was coming out of prior planning commissions was how do you, make sure that your zoning actually accounts for the ability to have larger lots, larger homes. And then we went through this massive shift into affordable housing that suddenly everything became,
Yeah.
smaller, cheaper, right?
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why when I read this, I thought this is actually very important information to have under this affordable housing section, because while obviously dealing with affordability and what's reasonable, like I've said it many times, I don't think there's a whole lot that we can do. There's a lot of market conditions that just drive that. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that that's a vital part of what keeps Cheney's businesses sustained and makes it a special community, is actually having those. And so as future development standards are being implemented, if everything is just affordable housing, affordable, then you completely lose addressing that
Exactly.
part of the population.
Quality, and
So-
not quality housing that people who have money
Yeah.
want to live here.
So we want to be in a
Or
position, we want to be in a position where if there's a developer that comes to town that says, I want to develop this area and this is the market that I'm going to serve, that we're able to say yes, because we didn't put anything in here that says, nope, it's always going to be affordable. Right. So, and I thought that that's basically having that information in this paragraph about recognizing the importance of EWC staff and students, everything was kind of a way of keeping that, still recognizing that without just going purely affordable. That makes sense.
What direction do you want to give to staff then?
Did anything I said make sense?
It sounds like you're looking for a kind of like a rewording with softer language, more of an encourage to keep them here, and kind of remove the negative language. Don't really mention that we've lost it, but try to figure out a way to show that we want to keep them here.
I think the goal is we want to keep an increased percentage of people that work here living here. So
And that's not just necessarily EWU faculty either. I mean, it's
Faculty and
city
staff.
anybody, business owners.
Yeah.
It's all across the board.
Yeah.
I think it's important to keep our city having diversity of all income levels and, broad range of everything. So it just makes it healthier.
Okay.
Okay.
Next paragraph, economic stimulation.
My comment about is this was meant by shared investment, was it? I suggested a rewrite and I had such a hard time understanding what it meant by the Cheney community has a shared investment going into West Plains. So I took a random guess and proposed a different structure of that sentence, but I have no idea if that was what that was intended to mean. So unfortunately, Nexus can't answer that question, but
Are we working with the Greater West Plains on things, or are we hoping to keep things more in Cheney?
No, I believe there's.
So we are looking, okay. So then we are looking for shared investments with the West Plains. Then does that make sense then, Shane, I guess? I'm not. too sure.
maybe if it was rewritten, I mean, I don't know if that came out of surveys or, so to say they have a shared investment doesn't sound the same as that they have an interest in a shared investment with the.
Or maybe the
rest of
Cheney
the West
community
Plains,
is
I don't-
working with the West Plains communities.
Maybe. Any other thoughts on that?
Common interest in
Common
investments going into the West Plains.
Sounds good.
As a common
Cheney
interest
community
in
has a
investment.
common interest in investment going into the West Plains,
I'd like that.
and whether or not investment is shifting away from Cheney. You know, that's a measurable thing that somehow, some way we should be able to measure if those statements are true or not. And then once you know whether they're true or not, you can address them.
I would like that sentence to be rewritten that way. Where it just says the Cheney community has a common interest in investments going into West Plains. And then you wouldn't have my suggested language.
I like it.
And then do we also want to add what he said at the end after West Plains and whether or not investments are shifting away from Cheney's community? Or just the first part?
I would think you would want to ascertain. You know, to make it a valid effort, you got to ascertain.
Sorry, say that again. Would it be then at the tail end?
As your comment reads, a voiced concern about investment shifting away from Cheney's commercial core. Could read to ascertain whether or not investment is shifting away from the Cheney core to other portions of the West Plains. You know, it could read something along those lines. That asks somebody to do the legwork and find the numbers to say, you know, are the dollars or percentage of dollars being invested in the West Plains? What was Cheney's share 10 years ago, 20 years ago? What is it projected to be 5 and 10 years from now? All of that is driven by Airway Heights, Highway 2, you know, all that growth out there. Cheney's always played that second fiddle, or third to some extent.
So you're proposing keeping the bulk of that sentence that I had, or part of the sentence I added in.
Yeah, part of the sentence. Yeah.
And whether investment is shifting away from Cheney's.
Because I think it's a valid concern for Cheney to know whether or not commercial investment is moving away from Cheney. You know, if it's not coming to Cheney for a reason, or if somebody has decided not to do Cheney and somewhere else for a reason, if they looked at more than one site. I don't know how you do that, but I think that, you know, if you want it to be a valid concern.
I'd agree with that. I don't know, does anyone else have any thoughts on that rewrite? Do that? I don't know if staff
Have
caught
thought.
all that.
You want me to read it off just to
Well,
clarify?
I mean, do you have thoughts on that?
I mean, I think what he's saying makes a lot of sense because it could be like maybe investments like what if Cheney is putting 80% of the investments in the West Plains and Airway Heights is only 10% or something, and we would want to kind of know whether or not we're all putting in an equal share to the area, and because then maybe Cheney isn't putting enough in, and that way we find out and we could be like, oh, we could put more on, but unless we actually know how much we're putting in compared to everyone else, no one really knows.
Keeping in mind that putting in and keep getting in are two different things.
More.
Sorry.
But the sentence I have so it reads, the Cheney community has a common interest in investments going into the West Plains and whether or not investments are shifting away from Cheney's commercial core towards the broader West Plains.
Sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. I like it.
Right. I'll take page 7.
Yeah, back to good point about is there data to support this on with a vacancy? I mean, I think anyone that lives here walks downtown and you know, you can see vacancies, or not even just downtown. You have parts around Safeway and stuff that have just been vacant as long as I can remember. But it does kind of also, the question is like, what's the reasoning? What's the data behind that? So I did thanks for that, because it made me think about it. And again, on the lens of just saying what's important to us, I would suggest rewriting that sentence that you have highlighted and saying supporting businesses downtown along State Route 904 is important to the city, period. And then we're not necessarily coming out and talking about vacancy rates, which we don't have data to back up and probably doesn't.
Well, again, we've all lived here a long time, and what you see is the same buildings are vacant for many, many, many years at a time. And then they get a tenant, and that tenant will survive 1 to 3 years and then be gone again, or they'll survive for an extended period of time. My dad used to tell me these businesses would move to town counting on the college kids to support their business, and they'd be all gung ho. First season, they had a great year, and then summer hits, and they've made enough to make it through the summer. The second year hits, and they're going, that's great. But now they're really struggling to get through that second summer with no college kids. And then they get to the third year and they go, shoot, we can't do this again. And the vacancies are driven, in my opinion, by piece of real estate has an inherent value. And that inherent value has to pay rent or mortgage. And what does it take to do $300,000 a year in business? Call it $365,000 a year. Is that $100 a day? Well, if you're going to pay yourself, if you're going, what is your mortgage or what is your lease going to be worth? Is it worth $2,000 a month? You're going to spend $24,000 right off the top. Insurance, interest, all those expenses, you have to earn an awful lot of money every single year. And then when the college students leave, that's why so many of the food places tend to be itinerant. They last 2 or 3 years, or they last a very long time because they figure out a way to get through the summer without the kids. Vacancy is not driven by walking distance. Vacancy is driven by a lack of accessibility to vehicles, because very few people want to walk 6 or 8 blocks to go get lunch.
I mean, are you basically raising concern with the sentence that comes right after that? I mean, I'm not disputing anything you just said. I'm trying to understand where that plays in with what the language we have before us.
Well, no, actually, I would agree with the more that the residents can walk or will walk and park. The ability to, the reason my dad moved out of the building downtown was because he got a parking lot with 37 parking spaces in it down there where Chaz is at now. And that was an enormous thing for him in that day, because before he had 6 parking spaces in front of the store that were shared. And he moves down there. Now all of a sudden he's got 37 parking spaces. People can come and they can stop, they can shop and do those things. And I think that looking at this as walk, you're never going to solve the problem of vacancy in downtown Cheney if it's about walk. It's just not going to happen.
I think, I guess if I'm reading the sentence before, I guess, I don't know, there's just kind of overall context of what's being discussed here. And that the sentence before is just talking about recognizing that encouraging the location of housing to better connect neighborhoods to commercial centers does lend to the fact that if you have, it's just like the apartments behind Safeway, right? Mm-hmm. There's a development strategy that says, you put some housing right adjacent to commercial so that you can get that foot traffic. Not to your point, people are going to drive and need to drive too.
Right.
But I guess I don't know if I have any issue with the way that it's written. Of course, I made my suggestion on the change of that sentence. I just don't know how to add anything about people driving and parking that would fit in with the context of the rest of the section.
Yeah. Well, to my example, it takes $1,000 per day in sales to generate $365,000 a year. So how many of these businesses down here can reliably and consistently generate $1,000 a day in sales? You know, because somewhere around 365, you've got a decent wage for for one guy or a family. You might be able to make a decent wage out of 365 once you paid the rent and all that other stuff. Anyway. You can't put enough jobs and shops in walking distance of enough customers to make that work.
Are you proposing a change or anything, or?
I don't see a point in beating a dead horse. I would remove the pink verbiage, businesses downtown, and the associated, the more that residents can simply walk or park once. Until you can find somebody with enough money to amass a large piece of downtown real estate, it's going to stay the way it is. It's been the same way since I was a kid. Nothing's ever changed because it can't change, because somebody can't take enough possession to put in a big enough place to park with a big enough retail. You know, you're never going to make it industrial. You don't want that in downtown Spokane and downtown Cheney. So how do you draw enough business? You got to have enough parking. You got to have businesses with enough momentum that they can do that. I would probably strike. I would probably strike most of the balance of that paragraph. Because you're not saying anything.
Do you think we should strike the purple line at the end, or, and then also the more residents can simply walk or park once? Is that what you're saying?
I would strike it, because it's a say nothing phrase. Encourage. How do you encourage? Do you do the advertising form so that somebody puts out their name and number on a regular basis? I mean, how do you encourage people to go to walk downtown? How many of us have walked 6 blocks to anywhere in the last 6 weeks? Not me.
What do the other members think?
Just saying.
I'm thinking that the whole basis of this is, it's surrounding a city planning concept of that when you're doing development, that you
Sure.
try to have housing that is walkable to commercial areas. It's not taking the place of the fact that you're ultimately, like, I don't think anything in here is suggesting we're gonna not provide for parking or not support the road transportation side of things, which is covered in another element. It's just from a overall, like, we're gonna support mixed use. So, having the allowing apartments on the upper stories in the downtown area, or just overall, if it's recognizing 904, I think, in recent history, there's been desire to, build apartments that are, down on that end on 904 in that roundabout, or in that area anyways. So, because there are a lot of people that do walk, or that might be their primary modes of transportation. So I think overall, increasing walkability supports businesses. I guess I just don't see it as something where I don't see it as written in a way that says that that's the only way.
Or
Gonna help, right? It's gonna help the businesses if people can get to them easy. I personally live in the core town, and I mean, I always walk downtown. It's one of my favorite things about where I live.
Yeah.
But so I guess that's my personal experience. And then I drive to your store, so a lot.
I live out of town, so I drive to work every day.
But anyway, so I don't know. I guess, yeah, I'm just struggling to get on board with wiping out. It's tying into the whole.
Well,
I'm okay with Shane's edits and then leaving the rest of it.
I guess, well, and now I'll also say that, even if we approve edits today, it's not closing the door on looking at
Yeah.
more edits in the future. So maybe that would give time to formulate what your suggestions would be so that we can look at it.
reality is that you have a one block range from one end to the other on both sides of the street that is considered the downtown core that we spend a lot of time spent on trying to figure out how to get these people more money so they can afford to improve the buildings, improve the businesses, and be successful. And I'm not going to say how I think that should be. So I wouldn't be appreciated. In a jocular way.
So are we okay with Shane's edits?
Yeah.
Leaving the rest?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Housing needs? I haven't seen anything need to be changed personally.
I do see in the housing needs, Shane clarified because they put just commerce and it's the Washington State Department of Commerce.
Okay. Page 8. I didn't have anything on page 8. What else?
Who is doing the allocating? Cheney has allocated 2,076.
The county.
Huh?
The county.
The county, okay.
Page 9.
I don't have anything there.
Are we on page 9?
Yeah.
I will say for Shane, for your comment here, I would just be a little worried about changing the names because I don't know what nexus considered high density or moderate density or low density. And if we do change it to what we consider, it might be different than what they considered. But it would be nice if it was consistent.
Yeah, and that's where admittedly I didn't try to decipher. It was just a recognition that there was kind of different terminology that was being used. And I think that if someone's looking across the comprehensive plan, consistency was going to help with understanding. So I think it's worth the exercise to at least look into it. But if at the end of the day, I get the position you're in that you might not be able to find that exact answer, and I don't necessarily have a problem with the information that's in the tables. So
I'll reach out to Nexus and see if they have any numbers specifically, like how many units per acre they consider low, medium, or high.
Anything on page 10? So we're
Looks right to me.
full paragraph.
That's what I would suggest, and Shane also had the same suggestion as well.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Yep. Page 11.
I guess maybe you can clarify, Travis. So I think what you're proposing this last paragraph be deleted. And I think it's my language that's in the comment. Is that what happened there? I think maybe
One thing, I was gonna save it for the staff report, but I guess since we're on the middle housing right now, it's a good time to bring it up. By the nature of Cheney's zoning, we have actually been doing middle housing because our R3 and R3H allow everything from single family up to multifamily, and it also allows the smallest lot sizes with the most building coverage. That's pretty much everything that middle housing has been asking.
You just don't label it.
Yeah, we just have it as R3 and R3H instead of middle housing. And it actually it surprised me because I figured in R3, R3H, we would only have multifamily, but out of the residential buildings, 37% are multifamily, 25% are single family, and 8.7 are duplex. And what's happened though is over the last 20 years in all the R3 and R3H, only 4 single family homes were built, but 63 multifamily buildings were built. So what happened was these places went from low density to allow any kind of density, which middle housing would want. And it all just kind of tended towards the multifamily because that's kind of where the developers could make most of the money. And so we have technically been doing middle housing. We have a good mix, 37 and 25%. That's a decent mix of buildings. And that's just in the R3 and R3H. So since we aren't required by law, since we're small enough population and we don't have any borders sharing with Spokane, I don't see the need in actually having any of this middle housing talk. And I've personally recommended we exit out the next several pages of all the middle housing because Cheney's been doing it for 20 some odd years already.
Yeah, it's just interesting. The state's kind of come up with this catch term for whatever reason. And we've just been doing it well already, I think.
I would agree. As I drive around Spokane, we do it better than most neighborhoods. And I was wondering, why are we hammering something that we've been doing for, I drive around this town and I'm like, there's middle housing everywhere.
Exactly.
And you go up north, you go to the South Hill, they don't have what we have here. So why are we beating it? This to me was just made
So
no
you're
sense.
sensing our frustration.
It just made
That's-
no sense at all. I'm like, what are we talking about here?
I'm good with it.
Works for me.
I'm on the fence. I'll explain. Cause you're right. And I agree. 100%. I hesitated on whether or not we should wipe it all out, not because I think that it needs to be in there, but whether or not strategically for the fact that this has to pass muster at the state, even though we're not required by that law to actually do the middle housing, right? Like we don't fall under that. But I keep hearing it that there's a suggestion that they're kind of going to be looking for that in our plan. And so I just thought maybe strategically, even though we're already doing it, if we're already doing it, it doesn't hurt anything to have it there. And we also maybe don't have to deal with pushback from the state because they think, oh, Cheney just basically, for lack of better words, gave the middle finger to them. So
We've discussed the possibility of just having some verbiage in there that addresses that straight up, that, even though it's not maybe the same terminologies, we've been doing this for a long time.
You want to add maybe some language, just
I thought you did already somewhere. I thought you came right out and pointed to the fact that we don't have to meet that law. Let's see. Oh, you do on top of page 6.
Oh yeah, you put that Cheney is not subject, but
So, I mean, and that's, I don't know. This other part does just a lot of explanation on what middle housing is. So there might be value to it. There being some sort of explanation of what it is, when the fact of the matter is on the top of 6, we're coming right on saying that we're not subject to the mandates. Nevertheless, we envision that type of development, which is fair because that's what we already do. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, we don't have any intention to go head to head with the state because they give us grants now and then, and it's a good thing to play well with them. And I think it's important that we do address how are we addressing this, but it's just, we're already addressing it, it's just called something different, and we just need to acknowledge that.
Do you want to add language just kind of points to what, put a label on what we're already doing? Paragraph or two?
I'm just trying to think if, from a comprehensive plan standpoint, is it necessarily pointing to what we already do? Is it still just outlining here's a plan for 20 years? So if we coincidentally are already doing it, that just means we're not going to be amending our zoning laws for it. But from a plan standpoint, it's still, we still have to recognize it, right? Like that's something, because otherwise, a year later we go, oh, actually, we don't want that at all. I don't know. Like I said, it's a strategic approach to say, let's keep an explanation on what middle housing is and that we still support that in concept. Although, like, if you look at what's written out in that comment, SN 19, you see that it's just saying, hey, Cheney's allowed to adopt middle housing regulations voluntarily. We're already doing that, but that's part of the voluntary side of stuff. So
is your proposed wording in that comment replacing this whole paragraph?
yeah. Can't say that I have a super strong memory when I wrote that, but yeah.
In the blue?
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe we'll just comment that Cheney has been doing this and then add in like, yeah, your paragraph is here to kind of explain what middle housing is. Because if we do say we have been doing it, we should explain what.
Yeah, you could keep the portion that says what is middle housing,
So,
so that you acknowledge to the state that you've talked about it and then point out that you're doing it, but
We'll continue to do it, right? Just-
so define it and then explain what Cheney's already is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep it short and sweet.
And personally, I trust staff on that.
Yeah. Housing barriers, bottom 14 into page 15.
Are we on the 15 now?
Yeah.
With the little change at the top, the should rather than will need to. I got what was going on there, but when I read this bolded list, to me, it's more of a no, these are potential barriers that need to be addressed, like things like lack of city funding. It's not a should, it just needs to. So I don't feel the need to change it to should, but I also don't hate it. So
I'm okay with should. I'm okay personally with all the changes on this, on 15.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 16. Shane, do you want to address your comments?
oh boy. Yeah, I think on the entire thing, I'm questioning whether or not that paragraph needs to exist. It's kind of goes into, like I get that there was a survey done. I think all that stuff goes into part of the decision making, but I don't I don't necessarily know that the way that, like if 80% of respondents did not strongly feel either way about the current stock. What was it? There was more than 70% said that housing was either somewhat or very costly. I think that if you go anywhere in the country and you ask the question, is housing cheap? The answer is no, it's not. That's just a fundamental fact of life. And there's no, like, what is affordable? At the end of the day, it's like when you suddenly feel like it doesn't cost much, right? It's kind of immeasurable. I would expect a very high respondents to answer that way, but to me, it doesn't necessarily tell an accurate story of what's happening in this community, which, as we've gone through the actual statistics, says that we have a variety of housing to fit all the needs. And also, as far as projecting out for the next 20 years. So just having this stuff about how people feel about their wallet, to me, doesn't do anything for this document. Just, yeah. So I just don't see the purpose of having that whole paragraph. I think that's background info. And at the end of the day, what we're producing here as a document just doesn't need to have it. That's just for our knowledge as we're making these decisions. So if there's no like resounding rejecting as to why not, I would propose deleting that paragraph, but.
Or do you know why Nexus put it in there? Because I agree with Shane. I mean, it's just noise, but
No
for
idea.
what purpose?
But one thing I just read that is a little concerning to me that I didn't notice is they say rising unaffordability can be a major factor. So I'm not even sure if there's any data showing that the rising prices has caused displacement in Cheney. So yeah, it might be a good idea to just exit out that whole thing. Because unless we have the data, I don't like saying things that can be proven wrong with data if we don't have the data, if that makes sense. Like, it wouldn't be good for us to say this has caused it, and then someone comes around like, well, I just did a research and not one house has been displaced because of costs. And I don't see any data. Like, of course, it could happen, and odds are it is happening, but unless we have that data showing we researched it, I don't think it should be.
I completely agree with your assessment of can be. That means they don't really have any information there to give. It's an opinion. And the other issue there is the unaffordability question. What is unaffordable? You know, we know that the number of units in apartment complexes in town are federally driven, federal dollars for shelter, and that somebody who might pay $35 a month for what is otherwise $1,000 a month apartment. You know, and I have heard those examples where they get them very, very cheap. And so what is driving unaffordability? You know, what makes it affordable? Is it a lack of housing that is not going to the federal government and said, yeah, I'd like to be in your program. So they're charging full rates, or, you know, we don't, you know, what is unaffordability? You know, who's defining that? And contractors are able to go to the state, and I forget where the funding was coming from, but a contractor can go to the state and say, I'm going to put up a $2 million building. What does it take for you to give me $1 million or or $500,000 in rebates for me to call it affordable housing? You know, so there's kickback on the contractor end of building these new buildings. It's out there, it's available. What's driving that term, unaffordability?
Well, I do know in the context for the comprehensive plan, what we want to focus on is the definition of affordability through the GMA. And the GMA defines affordable housing as housing where your rent or your mortgage, including all utilities, is no greater than 30% of the area median income. Sure. That's the technical GMA definition for affordable housing. And in these documents, when we talk about affordable housing, we're referring to the GMA definition because there are different definitions from different legislation things. Like the WAC has a different definition for affordable housing than the GMA. But because the GMA is what drives the comprehensive plan, when we
Sure.
talk about affordable and these, that's what
But
we're talking.
what is it about those statements that allows some landlords to lower their prices so significantly to some folks that they can now afford it because the government is subsidizing the construction of the building to a significant extent or not? You know, what are the underlying factors that drive unaffordability? That's my question.
Oh, okay.
You know, I think there needs to be an answer to that. You know, I don't know if any of the things built in the Cheney area in the last, and I imagine that the building department doesn't even see it. Because it's not something that's on their horizon or, you know, how, you know, they didn't ask me how I was funding my expansion of my building. You know, so they're not likely to ask, you know, Salnave Glen, I think it is down here at the other end of town, how did they fund the building of that project? You know, I heard $7 million is a number I heard bandied about. I don't know if that's accurate or anything like that, but that, you know, to get 60 units out of $7 million, it's a pretty steep price per unit. How do you make those units affordable? Just asking.
I think everyone really is
Anyway.
having a hard time trying to figure that one out. Because you can't, I mean, some places might do rent locks and stuff, but I don't think Cheney is a place where we want to start implementing that kind of thing. I do remember I did a report that I presented to you guys a long time ago, and it showed based on the actual developers' own numbers, if they developed between 700 and 900 square feet houses, that's where they're going to get to the technical affordability in our area. But that's just not where they develop. And that's, I think, from me personally, I think the main cause of rising house costs is just the size. Our housing, the amount of people per house on average is smaller than it was 30 years ago, but our houses are almost twice the size. And I think that's, everyone sees the big house next door and they want a big house, and they don't think like, well, it's going to take up 50-60% of my income.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then that's what ends up getting bought and sold. And then that's what the market kind of feeds on to.
Absolutely.
So it's hard.
I suppose the proposal is strike the whole paragraph, and I would agree.
Yeah. I'm okay with changes on 17.
It's fine.
Mhm.
19.
Changes look fine as well.
Yeah, I was good with 19.
19, somebody'd have to explain to me what universal design principles are. I don't know what that means. I mean, it sounds pretty pretty easy to sit, but that's not very definitive to me.
One thing I do want to state, one of the main reasons we also decided to keep the previous comp plan is because of how robust the goals and policies were in the previous comp plan. They are its own document, and each one of the goals relates to multiple chapters. Each one of the policies relates to multiple chapters. These goals and policies are strictly for these chapters. And so one thing we might want to do is just to look for which goals and policies we think are the best to bring over, because any goals and policies that change are going to be changed in the appendix with the previous comp plans, goals and policies. And they're not going to be as strong because they're mainly focused on just this chapter instead of the overall comprehensive plan. So we could, if you guys would like, push these goals and policies down the road to look through, because I don't think it's good idea to keep every single one of them. And they might also be doubling on the old comp plan. They might already be in there.
So H14 brings to me, mind, does the city actually build or substantially fund housing in the city? I'd never heard of that. And so I would think it totally inappropriate to introduce it now. The concept. I don't know if it's somewhere else in any other literature, but I would strike all of policy H114.
I think that's my fault.
Oh,
I think.
name over here on the right.
No, I didn't, but I think that was part of me trying to figure out how to make it fit in a world that made sense. Because I was, as I look at it now, I think really it's more about, you know, if the goal H1 is about neighborhoods being safe, vital, and attractive, there's an attractiveness that's built into zoning laws where you effectively make sure that, you know, the garage isn't all you see at the front of the house, that there's a certain amount of recession to it, breaking it up, or certain maybe, yeah, just the way this constructed from an appearance standpoint, right? That goes into zoning laws. So actually, as I think about it now, if that's the understanding of universal design principles, I'm more line with the original language. Just it's not constructing the housing. I think it's encourage or I don't know how you write that, but at the end of the day, it's that the city's implementing zoning regulations to encourage housing to be built.
So universal design principles would be relevant to, in different ways, to different batches of housing.
Yeah,
Obviously,
could be.
in a
There's
very high
general.
multi-family,
I mean-
that the universal design for parking and vehicle storage would be way different than for single family design.
It seems like it needs to be defined if it's gonna be.
Universal design needs to be defined.
Because as you were speaking, Shane, it's like, universal design principles in the 70s meant that you had a big garage door in the front, and your door was way over on the side. That was what everybody did, and it was accepted. We've learned that we don't really want that generally. So those design principles change over time. And so if it's universal, who's making this universally accepted? Well, everybody, the people do, but it happens over time. So I'm like, if we're gonna have it as a goal and policy, we might want to define it a little bit better.
All well and good, but I definitely would see the portion about city funding stricken.
Yeah, I agree
That
with
has no
that.
place being.
I'm completely agreeing with not doing any of my suggested change because I was trying to understand what it was trying to do. But I think what the understanding is more about appearances of neighborhoods, that the direction I went was wrong. So,
Withdrawing.
so yeah, I'll withdraw like my edit. That's my suggested edit. So I'd withdraw that and just look at the strike language, you know, as what's the baseline. And then if we want to edit from there, or if we're at least at this stage, because it sounds like staff's going to continue to do more work on these goals and policies, and then we can reevaluate what that looks like. Does that make sense?
It's staff, was staff can recommend changes to this, or do you want us to look this over the next weeks or so?
I would recommend not changing any of the goals and policies just yet because like I said, it could be that this whole keep Cheney neighborhood safe, vital, and attractive. There could be a much more in-depth goal that already hits that and talks about other things and connects with multiple chapters, in which case all we would need to do is maybe add one or two of the policies that we think attached to it if we don't already have it. Because I did notice going through a lot of Nexus stuff for the capital facility and transportation, they did just copy and paste over whole chunks. And so it wouldn't surprise me if some of these goals were already in our comp plan.
So we'll kick this section the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine. In H21, remove unnecessary barriers for affordable housing. What is that? What is an unaffordable barrier besides it costs a lot of money? You guys, you know, we did this building expansion down here, and honestly, there were very few occasions when I felt that the inspector or the city was requiring me to do something extraordinarily expensive to achieve some minimal effort. So the building costs a lot of money, and so does building a house and, an apartment complex. So what are the unnecessary barriers to affordable housing? Because I did not find it in city regulation. The city requirements, city regulations didn't require me to do anything beyond extraordinary. What else is there?
Yeah, hey, this is back to me again on my suggested language, but what I was envisioning is that I think there's probably zoning regulations that are on the books now
Yeah,
that maybe didn't apply in your situation, but maybe
Possible.
apply into general
Yeah.
creation of housing throughout the city, that I think it's to the benefit of the city that going into the future as a part of this plan, that we're always looking at those and saying like, oh, yeah, that's the rule that's there, but is that really necessary?
Those
Or
are
is it just
beneficial.
creating a roadblock because
Can it
suddenly
even accomplish its intended intent? The fact of the matter is that the wages I pay, they're the wages I pay. They are what they are. And short of the local wage earners earning more, this doesn't get any foot traffic.
I think one good example that I could use for the perception that the zoning is creating problems. I mean, it can, but if you don't look at it correctly or you don't look at alternatives.
Sure.
So like when Hayden Homes came in, when they were just proposing this last development, their percentages didn't work. Our zoning code is written, I can't quote it right off, but you can't have a garage door that is so much more percentage than the rest of the facade. And they saw that as this is unfair, just in chatting at a pre-development meeting. I'm like, well, it's a simple fix because that's where my brain grows. I mean, they were showing us hipped roofs that didn't have a lot of siding. I go, it seems if you just change your hipped roofs to gable ends, you can calculate all that in and it passes. And they're like, wow, that's a good solution. So I think it's how you look at it. So in that sense, we were trying to break down those barriers so that they can still do this plan that they felt was affordable with very little changes.
Yeah.
So I think we're trying, and
Yeah.
whether we need to explain it better, I don't know. I mean, I'm thrilled if I can save you some money. So.
I thought the city did just fine by me. I didn't have any problems really with what the city did, asked us to do.
So we'll
Okay, so we're gonna kick that one too?
pick, the
Okay.
whole section, the next meeting.
Yeah.
all the goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the goals, all the policies.
Yeah, so we'll have
Okay.
time, you'll have time to look over them. Next meeting,
On the land use?
we'll open up, this topic for public comment, if anyone wants to come up and comment on the housing element we just did. In the audience or online. If not, the chair would look for a motion to continue this public hearing topic to the next meeting.
Second.
Motion and second to continue this to the next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Right, topic 5, public hearing 2026-05, comprehensive plan, land use element draft second presentation. And I will look to staff to see if we have any opening comments, or do you just want to jump into it again?
Well, the same thing with the goals and policies here. Then we'll just jump into it, I guess.
Okay, do you want to push goals and policies on
Yeah.
this? Okay. We'll just make note of that now. When we get there. And we'll jump into page 3. That's the introduction. Travis, you had a comment? All right, now should.
Yeah, just softer language, because if we say that zoning changes must be consistent with the future land use map, and someone proposes a zoning change that actually makes complete sense, but on the future land use map, it's not designated, by saying must, we would automatically make it to where we wouldn't be able to do that. So obviously we should be consistent, but there are definitely times when it could be changed in the correct way that's not consistent with the future land use map, because maybe the economics of the city change, maybe a whole bunch of industry comes in and our industrial area gets filled out, or who knows, there's, if we limit ourselves to just that map, we can lose out on a whole bunch of business, I think.
Okay. Shane, is the blue your?
Right. Yeah, but I don't know, maybe we can, if anyone has a question on anything or a comment or something, just go page by page.
Yeah.
Page 3 is fine for me. Nothing on page 4.
3 is good, nothing 4.
Page 5 is
Page
fine.
5. Travis, you had a comment on 7.
Actually, on page 6, if we want to go back,
Like there's a couple
there
of red
is,
introductions there.
yeah, there's a couple changes because they missed a couple zones, and also the very top one, SR2. We no longer have SR2. It's a critical area limited residential. So that very top row should be stricken from.
That'll make the next draft. 7.
If I may.
Yep.
Page
Councilman.
11. I think we discussed this at the last meeting, but pending UGA amendment, I thought was decided that was separate outside of the comp plan. I'm looking on page 7 on that current land use map.
There was talk, yeah, about changing the definition of pending to something else, but I can't remember what the word was.
So I'll refer you to the meeting minutes, page 2. Mr. Morning said that the UGA swap was completely separate, it's outside of the comp plan. So I was surprised to see this in the figure.
And also I noticed on this that the color for parks and vacant land are the exact same. And so, yeah, I think this map should be updated, and yeah, what do you guys think about possibly do we want to keep the UGA amendment pending or leave it or change the name of it? Cause
My
I
memory-
agree that saying it's pending is confusing because technically it is not pending.
Yeah, my memory is we're just gonna remove it because this document's gonna stay static essentially. And the amendments come and go. That's my memory of it. And then if we can get a different color for parks and vacant lots, that'd be good too.
I guess not to mention, this is reflecting current land use. Right?
Yeah, there's a separate map for future, right?
Yeah, this one is their current land use. And their
I
future land use is on 14.
I got a question for staff. So from a timing standpoint, is there any actions that need to occur at the county level to address the UGA that we need to get submitted by any deadlines that are going to occur before we actually pass this entirely this year? I'm posing the question because I want to vaguely say there might be something that has to happen regarding shifts in the UGA this summer, or is there anything like that? And I guess the reason I'm asking is if there's any potential that this change is going to occur before this whole package is passed, then I think that does make sense to have it in this draft so we don't lose sight of it. Because when we actually pass the entire thing, that might be the actual current land use, right? As opposed to just being future.
It's my impression that the UGA has been pretty much anything that impacts the UGA for this cycle of comp plan revision is more or less set. We'll have to come back at it and reevaluate our land use, our land quantity analysis and then go to bat to get those revisions. I look forward to our on-call planners to be able to have this discussion and get into the weeds on it in a big way, because we need to address this.
My understanding is we submit everything to the county, then the county takes action on it from all the other jurisdictions. When they've set some basic goals and I guess allocations. And then we have to work within those and then submit it to them. So I don't think we're waiting on any major decisions, right, at this point?
Sorry.
We're not waiting on any major decisions from the county to direct our work.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if there's no chance that this is going to be a part of the current land use at the time of adoption of the plan, then I would suggest removing those portions then from the current land use map. But it is shown in the future, and I think that's appropriate in the future.
And one of the reasons why this whole UGA talk has been happening and why we're getting our UGA kind of removed is because the first SCJ LQA land quantity analysis showed that we could grow within the city limits, and then Nexus enhanced that, and with their LCA, which is a different thing, land capacity analysis, they also showed that based on SCJ's data, we could. And so the county has two different reports from the city saying that we can, but they were done through SCJ and Nexus. And I'm hoping that because this time they are implementing a 5-year reevaluation instead of 7 years. And I'm hoping we'll get a different LQA to show what's actually happening within the city, show the trends from the last 20 years, because how they did the original LQA is the industry standard, but it's not realistic. It'll take, like, if you have a building that's 40% of the valuation it could be, they'll say, well, this is underutilized. And then they'll count that as possible reallocation. But if the city of Cheney in the last 20 years hasn't taken down any buildings downtown to rebuild new ones, it doesn't make sense to count that as underutilized if it's not actually ever going to be fully utilized. So I'm hoping in 5 years we can show that we do need a UGA, show that we're not going to be able to grow within our city as it is, and then we can fight to get UGA back in the 5-year plan.
So we're good with the edits.
And the UGA battle is next.
It's, yeah.
So
When you say it's next, it's independent of the comp plan.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
not independent. I mean, it does affect it, but this train has been going, and our documents, our land quantity analysis has impacted what we are given it or allowed at this point. If we're going to address it, we have to go back to the root of the data. And is it realistic? And look at Cheney and assess what we really do need, and then approach the county.
But the land quality analysis is a foundational principle of this comp plan update.
Exactly, but this was done quite a while ago, and there's some discussion as to how accurate it was, by how it was approached. Even the rest of the jurisdictions are even going back and forth on, well, was this method better or was this method better? It's pretty fluid discussions. And
Let's move on.
all right, page 8. I'm okay with Travis's correction, edit. Jane, did you have a question on green spaces?
I don't know. Did you have a chance to? I didn't look into it further, but the House Bill 1181 have any more specific requirements on identification of green spaces, or have you had a chance?
Yeah, I didn't have a chance, but I'll look into that and see if they're not requiring more specific identification. Are you proposing anything?
It's just making sure we're in alignment.
Oh,
So
Page 9 and 11.
Oh, 10. On page 10, the map is for critical areas, but a few years ago, Cheney passed a resolution adding steep slopes into the critical areas. And since this map doesn't show the steep slopes, the name should be changed from critical areas to flood hazard and wetlands because it does not include the steep slopes, so it's not a complete critical area map.
Are you okay with that change?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good with that. 11. Jane, you had a question?
Oh, nah, it's not really so much a question. It was kind of tying it back to the housing element. There was an edit that was made on the housing element, and this was what I was talking about. It was more so, I guess, in a sense, a reminder in case staff had to question what the heck I was talking about with that in the housing element, so.
Are we okay with the striking red? I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
12. Fan of this you.
Yeah, but unless there's comment or any question. It's just a readability suggestion, so.
I'm
I think,
okay.
I think on 12, it's just an acknowledgement of what the legislature has done.
Yeah,
That's fine.
and I'm okay with Shane's edits.
Yep.
Mhm.
13.
13's fine.
Yeah, it was just kind of a general reminder about, there's a little bit of confusion during the presentation as far as exactly what was being changed. And I guess it was just an overall ask to staff to kind of maybe make it a little more descriptive. So if someone's reading through is what the changes are, they have a very good idea exactly what it was, but I don't have any suggestions myself.
14. Are we good with the map?
Yep.
I would say we do have the UGA amendment pending. I think we should change pending to proposed because it's not
Proposed.
pending.
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Mr. Valencia,
Yeah.
quick question on that. The last meeting, we talked about an urban growth or urban reserve. It may be more appropriate to investigate that unless staff has dismissed that.
Yeah, we can look into that, but I think we'll also want to touch base on the UGA as well. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to look into the urban reserve, but I'll put a note down and.
My understanding on proposing a UGA, you have to justify a proposed UGA. In terms of numbers.
But
correct?
then the
Density.
urban reserve is different, like.
Urban reserve is different and there's more flexibility. I'm not sure how we would present a proposed UGA 20 years out.
Yeah.
Could you say future? I mean, I think we are establishing at this stage what we're envisioning for the future. So I think you could say, rather than propose, that it's future. I mean, it's just, it's a timestamp of what we're envisioning today. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is or isn't happening, or it has or has not been proposed. It's just future.
Makes sense. And yeah, the land use map, by the way, is not, it's not saying that by law, these are the zones. This is just saying this is how we envision the future of our zoning. And this is why I also changed the wording from must to should comply with the future land use map, because it gives us some more flexibility. So yeah, it's not saying that we need to have the UGA here. It's not saying we need to have the change to business, general commercial, or to mixed use. It's just saying this is how we envision the change in the future.
So,
So actually on that is if we're just envisioning it for the future, would it actually just straight up call those areas UGA? Give them just the straight lines, not crisscross lines?
I think the only reason they changed it is because they wanted to differentiate it from our UGA right now, because if Chesney does take away our current UGA, it would be different, because we might not want to put the UGA back into the wetlands. If they're giving us a whole bunch of land, we might want to focus other areas instead of where nothing's been developed the last 20 years. So.
Okay, thanks.
page 15.
And I made a mistake on this one. The critical area limited residential, we do have, it's the SR2 that we don't have. So ignore the red lines in that, we would want to keep it.
Dan, you had a comment on this? Nope. And then we're gonna say goals and policies for next time. So that no one has any other discussions or questions for land use. Go to public comments. So anyone in the audience or online.
Bonnie Mager, 15220 West Dairyview Lane, representing Cheney Co-housing. If you could just turn to page 7 of 18 on the map. This is something that's been brought up several times in the past and was not corrected by the consultant Nexus. And last month, when I couldn't be here, Nexus misrepresented what was going on and led you all to believe that the 2 parcels on Normal Park Road and also the parcels next to the city park that Cheney would like to bring into the urban growth boundary through a not land swap, but through a realignment of the urban growth boundary. They were absolutely had it backwards. These parcels do belong in this process, and it was so noted when we went through a very lengthy process to go before the county commissioners, and they, because they were having some problems with some legal issues with a lawsuit from FutureWise, decided that they would rather kick this to that, and Cheney was told that it should be in this process. The city council voted on this and directed Lexus to put this into the urban growth boundary and to remove property that was south of the railroad tracks, so that that would not increase any kind of issue or create an issue, because they weren't adding to the urban growth boundary, they were readjusting it within this process. Lexus twice just ignored it, and when they were finally pushed to do it, they actually didn't do it. They just put this stupid little 2 boxes on here and then came before you last month and told you that was a process that this should be done in. And it absolutely is not. And the county commissioners denied it because they believe that this is the best process for this to come through. And I agree with them. And we've spent 7 years on this development. now to be told that somehow that because that your consultant did not put it on the map as instructed, that now we're going to be penalized. We aren't going to go quietly into this good night. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
I just want some clarity on terminology here too, because a land swap is a specific thing in the law, and it's normally done outside of the comprehensive plan review. And matter of fact, our land has been put in for a land swap, and then it was removed and told to put in the comprehensive plan review, where you actually do boundary adjustments. That's where you do them. That's part of the 10-year comprehensive plan. So there, I guess I got a little confused when you said we're going to do a swap afterwards, because that would be outside of the UGA process. And that's not actually normally where you adjust boundaries. And I also want to just state, like, from a City of Cheney perspective, you're looking at losing 100, 200 acres. County's going to pull it out because you haven't seen any growth in the tracks. I get it. That makes sense. But like, if you don't ask for anything in those boundary adjustments, then you're going to have to wait for the 5-year review before you get any more land. But you need to take into account the fact that you're losing 200 or 100, 200 acres of your UGA, and that you should draw the lines accordingly to increase the land where you've seen systemic growth, like in the north. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that, because when you say UGA swap, it's a technical thing. It's outside of the UGA process. And to do that, you actually have to swap land that's already in a UGA to add land that isn't, and they're going to take that all away from you. So you can't do a swap once the land's gone. I'm just throwing that out there. Doesn't make any logical sense, like the way it's being discussed. Thank you.
I think, I'll just say really quick that I think just in general, all this UGA stuff, I think it'd be awesome if maybe we had something in writing from staff in our next packet that outlines any potential stuff that should be or should not be happening. Because I'll just admit for myself that I'm hearing public comment, I'm hearing staff's direction. But at a certain level, it's not sticking in my brain. So it would help me, I know, to at least be able to see it, because I know just personally, I want to make sure that if there's anything that's we could miss the boat on, I don't want to miss the boat. So.
So I haven't talked with Scott Chesney or anything about the UGA, but I was in one of the PTAC meetings, and from the sounds of it, what has happened is because Cheney through Nexus and SCJ showed that we can accommodate our growth, the county had already, from what I heard, decided they're gonna change the UGA around and have allocated it differently. And so because of those things that were put in and because of the timeline, we could and we should fight for our UGA, but by doing so, what we're essentially saying is every other jurisdiction in the county now needs to change what they've already approved, because we're going back on what we sent in as approved data. That's as far as I understood. And that's why I'm pushing for showing that no, the data we sent in is not correct. We do need a UGA, but from my opinion, the boat's already sailed on that, because we would have to do the research, present it, and everyone has to have their comp plans approved and everything by the end of the year. And every other city in the jurisdiction has approved it, but us, from what I know. So it would be an extremely hard battle, but it's one that I am definitely going to be fighting on for the 5-year, because we are getting screwed over, in my opinion, by losing this UGA. But unfortunately, the city did approve and send in the documents from Nexus, and they did approve and send in the documents from SCJ. So it's kind of hard for us without data showing otherwise. We can't just say, no, we're changing what we need, if that makes sense.
When was,
All impacts those percentage numbers of population that we looked at earlier. That's the number that the county assigned for Cheney based on our prior reports. And yeah, if we were to fight to go back, I mean, there's already other jurisdictions that have finished their comp plans and they have went on those numbers. And it's all a percentage. They got X amount and we got X amount. If we get a little bit more, then that goofs up everybody's numbers. And so that's where we feel the boat sailed a bit. It's not that we won't continue to rally because we need to.
Would the county have to accept an amendment if we were to ask, or is that you're saying that the ship's already sailed? That
Yeah, not right away. I don't get the feeling because it's the other jurisdictions. Let's say I'm just going to grab a jurisdiction like Deer Park. They have a percentage that was based on if the whole area has 100% and we got, I don't know, what is it, 30%, then everybody's numbers would change. And that's, and so when it comes down to when on the PTAC advisory board, I haven't signed saying that I agree with those numbers. I won't, because we were not, they don't treat us well, but it was kind of our own fault when we signed those documents.
We weren't well represented, so we signed something we shouldn't have.
Previously with the land quantity
Yeah.
analysis. Yeah. So I don't want to sign something now saying I agree with it. I mean, I'll abstain. I don't want to read too much, but I don't want them to think I agree either. So.
You're talking about percentages. Is there anything that can be done that would include removal of part of this area that we generally all know is not going to get developed on the other side of the tracks as a part of that amendment ask, so that it doesn't actually involve any other jurisdictions?
You mean
It wouldn't change the percentage, right? If we actually were reducing in those other areas.
No, it doesn't seem to impact our UGA size. This, you're
No,
understanding that differently.
if the numbers changed and increased to the point where I don't know the exact number that the SCJ and Nexus showed, but if it passes that number, like if they say we can have 6,000 additional people within our boundary, but then they allocate 7,000, we would be able to much easier fight for UGA. And that's why I think the way they did it and formulated the numbers for what can be developed is wrong. I don't think that we're going to develop additional housing for 5,000 people within the city limits. I just don't really see it happening. We need larger tracts of land. We need open land for developers to come in. Of course, there's going to be the infill here and there, but there's not going to be infill enough for 5,000 people. And so the fact that we're losing that because they said we could, I don't know where they got those numbers, and I just don't trust the numbers, because I really don't see how we can get several thousand new homes or apartments within the city limits, how we are.
In all fairness to these past studies, we have had developers come in like the Hayden Homes developers and Lennar, and they've come in very recently and very quickly, and they maxed out what in the previous time would have taken a long time to get there. And it's happened very quickly. So we're coming up to speed on that. When we update our land quantity, that'll take that into account.
let her speak again.
My question to you is, have they already told you that they're going to take out that 200 acres and take it?
I'm not 100% certain, but it sounded like it. But I haven't heard.
Unless they've already told you that, I think you have a good argument, a legal argument to say, we still have this much urban growth boundary. We're not doing a land swap, which you told us that you wouldn't accept, that we needed to go through this process. In this process, you have the right to readdress your urban growth boundary and change it because that land was a mistake and could not be developed. And so now you have 200 acres that you should be able to put wherever you want. But I recognize there's going to be pushback on that because now they're hurting for where they want to put land. But this was already in the works. The commissioners told Cheney to do this. And it should be part of this process because if it goes back to them, I do not trust at all, given who's there, that they will honor what they said. And that is a problem.
Thank you, Bonnie.
They do those numbers, but they've actually included the 10 acres in those numbers. So you actually have to draw them in. If you look at the EIS, which is the environmental impact study maps, the 10 acres that Cheney has requested is in them. You just need the map to match it. So you won't get any pushback on those 10 acres. Scrubs land might be a different story, which came in late, nothing against him.
That was my impression that those 10 acres have been approved by Mr. Chesney at some level.
Right. 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 My point is, since those 10 acres have been approved, if they were put into the UGA boundary, as you submit that map, you're not going to get pushback like you're talking about for the rest of this. That's all. Thanks.
It seems to go little lines, because then they're not outside, but they're on the inside. And that's what they were directed to do. And Nexus did a horrible job of their whole process. I've been involved with GMA since the very beginning. Know a lot about it, and they were okay. They didn't do what they were directed. I would be asking for my money back.
And I don't, go on. I was just gonna say, I don't know 100% how this all works, but one thing we might want to look into too is if I do know the whole land swap term is wrong and that there's a certain term for like reallocating. I don't know for sure, but I don't see why it wouldn't be possible before the end. Like if they are going to take away, they have it technically taken away, maybe not yet. If we can get that switched over into a UGA and annex it in before they take away our UGA, then it would technically be part of the city. And even if they took away the UGA, that wouldn't go because it's now technically city, but I don't know how that process works.
I think we need some.
Because you're not advocating, you're simply, and in fact, even Edmund came and testified at that hearing in support of this guy. So you don't even have a landowner who's going to be unhappy at some of the land that he thought he could develop. It's had 15 years, he knows it can.
Can we try to get some clarity from the county for the next meeting? Go ahead, sir.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Clear my throat. Tom Scrupps. I'm the two parcels that are north of the Betts Park and Harvest Bluff. Not near the effort, major that they have put in. But I bought that property in 2009. Started in 10 with Mr. Abelman about down the road because you could see the direction. I mean, Harvest Bluff was still farmed. Had discussions. I had maps. Made one fatal error probably about 5 years ago. I was one of those poor employees that did way too much work on his work laptop that was personal because I lived on the road. But I had numerous maps that showed we were in, kind of where that was going as far as the direction. I'll admit, kind of sat idly by until this started. And then kind of all of a sudden we're not in that. So, I support that direction. We do not oppose that. My issue was city utilities are there. They're on Murphy and they're in Harvest Bluff. And you've got the park that surrounds that park. It's not a wetland. It is buildable, unlike South. So I'm a little bit, like I said, I'll admit I kind of went a little bit asleep But the conversations, and I'm not picking on Mr. Abelman, but I wish I had those maps that I kind of thought we were in. I didn't need to be kind of keep down this road. And then I had conversations where the land quality analysis, and I would agree if these numbers are not right from what we've seen, but they're accepted, probably can't change them. But in that LQA, not all of that's buildable. So you're kind of wanting to go spots where aren't buildable. And I'm going to come back. You brought this up. Why do the professors leave? My opinion, there isn't housing here they want to be in. They don't want to be on a 7,000 square foot lot where they can touch both fences. They want space. That property is subject to that. I wasn't here. You talked about Jarms and it made me think downtown with the 6 spaces. I'll go back that Jarms does an awesome job. I do not know how he hires the people he does, but I have a little game, and I've told him this. He might not remember it, especially in the news store. My game is to get all the way to the back of the store before somebody asks me what they can help me with. And I can't win. But, he was proud. And I'll say when we moved here, going for the 6 spots to down what is now Chaz, I wasn't a customer. I couldn't come in with my trailer. So boom, the minute that changed. So we talk about that, what brings people to this town? And my take on this town right now is you don't have people that come in, and I get the affordability, but there's also that opponent that want an acre, 3-car garage, and a shop for their boat and their RV. We don't have that, and we're going to miss. So a lot of rambling but I just thought I'd say the bald guy with the gray goatee, I am the Scrups dots on there. And we've supported that growth that we've seen the city come north, and we've supported that since 9.
Thank you. We good with land use element?
Yes.
Just, just other than the fact that I'm just not sure what should or shouldn't be in the map. And that's why I was asking for just some sort of outline and writing on where all that process sits, because I do think some of that is separate from this discussion, but it could be that it should be part of the discussion. I just need it all outlined.
We'll talk with Chip to get some clarification.
And maybe a brief overview, next meeting, just kind of the map, the issues, and any clarification you get from the county.
Okay.
All right, so then we will continue this one. Looking for a motion to continue this to next month.
So I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion and a second to continue public hearing 2026/05. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed unanimously. We'll move on to public hearing topic number 6, number 2026-07, capital facilities and utilities element presentation. How do you want to handle this?
We're just introducing these next 2 chapters. We don't want you to go through it tonight.
Okay.
We're gonna they're on the website too, citizens to read through, submit edits, any red lines, any comments as well. We're hoping to have all comments, red line edits into the city by the 29th. Then we can give you a red line copy with everyone's edits to approve for the next meeting.
29th of June.
The 29th of June, yep. And that's also with the appendix changes.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
I think we'll continue this the next month. Looking for a motion to continue public hearing 2026-07 to next month.
Make a motion.
Oh, yeah. Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, on to public hearing 2026-08, transportation element presentation. Look at staff.
Same thing, just get your edits in by the 29th, read through it. It's on the city website. we would like to have citizen comments sent in as well. And yeah, we'll put all the edits in and get it presented to you next month for approval.
Thank you. And again, we'll continue this one. Looking for a motion to continue public hearing 2026-08.
Motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And public hearing 2026-09, appendix B and C presentation.
Same thing, the appendix ones, there's gonna be changes almost every month. So that's why I ended up giving you guys the full appendix. What's presented in this month's is just the edits for number 9 and number 4. So again, this will just be any edits, that need additional changes to the appendix will be brought forward next month.
Okay. Looking for motion to continue public hearing 2026-09.
So moved.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Continue. All right. Agenda item number 9, any commissioner reports?
No.
Okay, none. Staff reports, and I'll ask that we discuss the calendar.
Yep. So the calendar is basically the outline. This is an updated one because we decided we're gonna use the chapters from the previous comp plan and those chapter titles are different. It does look really busy, but like for August, you'll be reviewing 3 chapters and introduced to 3 chapters. Several of those chapters are about 3 or 4 pages long. A couple of them only have 1 or 2 edits. So it's very minimal changes in some of these because they were optional already, just above and beyond, and they're not required elements. So it'll be the same thing. We'll review the capital facilities and transportation next month. And it will also introduce technology, essential public facilities, and in the implementation chapters. And every month after that, it'll be basically the same thing. We'll come back to approve the ones that you were introduced to and made red line edits to, and then be introduced to some others and given several weeks to make comments on it. And then in October, you'll review a completed version of the entire comprehensive plan. And there'll be any edits that anyone sees, the public or committee. And then November and December, I propose joint meetings with the city council, and that way everyone could talk it over. It might be in November, the first joint meeting, everything goes smoothly, but if not, then the December. That way there's 2 chances, there's a chance for the city council to input any changes they might see as well. And this is what I'm hoping we can get through.
Any questions?
No.
Any other staff reports? Okay. Well, hold on, let me get through this first. Looking at next month, the July 13th meeting, do we all expect to be here?
Yes.
If I have to be virtual, I will. So.
I'll be here.
Okay, so plan on a quorum. If not, we'll have to punt it, but for now, looks like we'll have a quorum. And then one last comment.
Because Wendy is still a planner here provided for the city that applied for, when they applied for the application to have the property put into the program of downtown.
Okay, thank you.
To the kind of the rationale for why the city did it.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else for the order? If not, we will adjourn this meeting and see everyone next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. April. Document I gave you. The April meeting minutes.
I got a copy.
He gave it. Oh, the one I slid in, I get it.
Oh, shoot.
I need to find it.
How you doing, Vince? Good.
Yeah, all of it. I didn't realize it until I slid it over the.
I thought, I didn't realize who slid it. So, is that right?
No,
This is the April one.
I gave you this is May. Okay, never mind. I think it's supposed to be it. Waiting for a submission.